Just for some information for everyone, this is a long-term enhancement plan. The last one we did back in 2001, we were still doing stuff last year on it. So this is not gonna happen overnight, this is a plan to follow, so when new presidents come in, new screen shares come in, there's something to follow. And it's really important to know that we're not gonna be assessing everybody $1 million to get all done next week. Maybe next year. No. At this time, I'd like to introduce Rob McNeil. Rob is not new to Bass Rocks. Rob was the architect of that first enhancement plan back in 2001. So Rob, just give you a little background. He's the principal and president and principal architect of McNeil Design Collaborative, the Northeast Golf Company, MDC Global Golf, and NGC Golf Operations. Rob has designed and managed over 200 golf course projects, including award-winning highlight playing work at the club at River Oaks, Mohegan Sun Golf Club, Preserve at Boulder Hills, Met Links, Skyview Golf Club, and Bass Rocks Golf Club. He began his career in the dirt, working construction maintenance, including working under the director of Nicholas Design at New Albany Country Club in New Albany, Ohio. And he learned the craft of golf course architect in the offices of famed architect Michael Herzan and Keith Foster. A couple of well-known names, you can look them up for sure. His accomplishments are far-reaching, and his skill set is quite unique in the golf development industry, including master planning, comprehensive architectural design, operations management, agronomics, construction, project management, budget feasibility analysis, and historic restorations. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our course architect, Robert McNeil.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. It's always great to be here at Bass Rocks. As Peter said, we've been here a good bit of time, and we're excited to see everything that's happened over those 20+ years working with Chris and before him, Patty, and others on the golf course. We're here tonight as we've spent the last about 6 months or so looking again at the golf course, what kinds of improvements and enhancements we could recommend, what the future of Bass Rocks might look like, what it wants to look like, what it can look like. So we spent a good bit of time with Chris, with Peter, with the committee, going through a variety of recommendations. And tonight is kind of the culmination of whittling down to a few categories of improvements on the golf course and some specific items as well. For those of you, this jacket here tonight, those of you who are laughing a little bit about it, it's the American Society of Golf Course Architects. There's only a few of these in the country, so I'm pretty proud to wear it, but it's kind of funny looking. It is the Ross plaid, by the way. This is Donald Ross plaid. So without any further ado, I'm going to start our presentation here with a little bit of a video that kind of introduces our process, what we've done so far here at Bass Rocks, and moving forward. And we have a technical difficulty right out of the gate. Stay close by, please. We know here would be better. Our most recent assignment to develop a comprehensive golf course enhancement plan. Bass Rocks has been approached with great reverence for the club's history, its interesting architectural pedigree, and with forward-looking concepts to address strategic, aesthetic, and functional issues. Since I first walked the grounds of the Rock in 1999, I've been enamored with how the quintessential craggy New England terrain has been integrated within the routing of the course and defined its memorable character. The architectural history of Bass Rocks is consistent with the quirky beginnings of golf in this country, including a 6-hole course in the Meadows laid out by Alex Finley, 9 holes by a local engineer, and finally the 18-hole layout by Herbert Leeds, who is most famous for his work down the road at Myopia. We're going to change that.
Our representation leads ability to lay out strategy and embrace the site's many natural elements. Knowing the club's reputation in the region, we're so excited for the opportunity to continue our architectural consulting relationship with Bass Rocks. During my visits, I met with club leadership to listen and inventory their thoughts, ideas, and questions regarding the golf course. I spent considerable time walking, studying, and playing each hole to identify where subtleties can be exposed and broader solutions can be developed for ongoing challenges on the property. We are always diligent and mindful not to recommend waste, and more importantly, to present opportunities to solve problems and improve the player experience. Dr. Alistair McKenzie once said that if expenditures aren't improving the course, then it's money better left unspent. Achieving this important balance and bringing the best out of the property drives our vision for the future of Bass Rocks.
So there's a tremendous amount of history at Bass Rocks, and we began there. We thought it was very important to reach back to the beginnings here, understand what this course was right at the start and how it evolved over the course of time, and integrate any character and information and design plan and design vision that may have been happening over the course of 100+ years to our work today. So we began with the history, and it started right here where we're sitting. That's the original clubhouse circa 1910, and we're kind of sitting right there in one of those windows, behind one of those windows. So you can see the car there from 1910. Kind of cool. As I was saying in the video there, it began as a 6-hole course that sat essentially down where the meadows are. Expanded to 9 holes by Madison Mott Cannon, took over some of the meadows as well. So there's a 9-hole golf course that's 1904 to 1913. Then Herbert Leeds came in and developed the 18-hole property that is here today. And then some revisions were made in the late 90s by Phil Wogan, where you have the 6 greens, 7, 8. We're done in the 90s, and that's what you have today. So that brought us to where we are today. And essentially that ended in 1999. That's where we came in. So we came in right around the same time, or just after, when hole 7, and it was an issue back then, and it's an issue today, I guess. Topic of conversation right when I got here in 2000, we were talking about the 7th green, and we're still talking about it today. We began with that history. We embraced that history. And most importantly, we embrace the character of this property and how can we enhance it as best we can. So from there, we began to develop some comprehensive priorities and some goals. And we broke it down into 10 different categories. I'm not going to read each one of these because we're going to go through each one of these individually. But it's always important in developing a master plan. You don't get too scattered. You don't get too caught up in all the issues of the day. We like to compartmentalize and bucket list each category so we can focus and improve the golf course in a very effective and efficient way. So they're in no order of priority. I just want to make that clear. They're just in orders of category of improvement. And in many cases, these categories overlap one another and start to integrate into a more comprehensive design. First, bunker reimagination plan is what I call it. I think over time, bunkers evolve. They're a living organism. We've rebuilt a bunch of bunkers on this golf course. I'm looking at a couple right now out the window there on 18, several on the golf course. But over time, what we're looking for here, what we're trying to guide here is a style and a form and a character that's very fitting to Bass Rocks. Yeah, embracing the rocks on the property, embracing the craggy material that's out here, all the elevation change in topography, and building a natural character that kind of fits the styling of this property. And this is some of the, I'll call them a vision board that we put together to start to think about some styling on this golf course and what we want to fit into these golf holes to really set them apart. You can just see the natural feeling of these types of properties. This is Bandon Dunes out in Oregon. And this is a golf course we did to preserve at Boulder Hills, which kind of represents a little bit of what's out here, including building bunkers into the rocks that are here, and just utilizing the natural terrain of the property. So all of these things are being considered. Nothing's been planned yet, but we're kind of developing a vision board for the bunker development program on the golf course. And bunker development is not only character and style, it's strategy, positioning, location, playability, maintainability. All of those things are considered as we go through the bunker development program. You can see on the master plan as you look at it later, where we've positioned bunkers from a strategic standpoint. Secondly, we look closely at the practice facility. I think that's its own project right there. The practice facility here at Bass Rocks is pretty much the front door. When you come to this property, it's one of the first items you see, one of the first amenities you see, and there's tremendous potential sitting in that part of the property, unused. Of course, it was part of the original routing of the golf course, but now it's a very active and utilized area of the property. So what can we do to bring that up to date? There's not many courses out there that have exceptional practice facilities, and you have an opportunity here to have just that. So what we've begun to do is kind of lay out a more formal target field and the potential for a 6-hole golf course on the practice facility, as well to give it a multi-purpose use. There's a lot you can do in that area. It's a big area. It's a workable area. It's a constructible area. So there's a lot of imagination that can go into that space. But practice these days is very important. Teaching is very important. And again, it's the front door to the golf course. One of the projects we completed recently is the links at Mendham, which is in New Jersey. And there they had, a small parcel of land, less than 2 acres, where we created a 3-hole, 9-hole golf course. A 9-hole golf course with 3 holes. And it's used continuously by the membership at Mendham. So you can do a lot of very interesting, unique things on small pieces of land. From a practice standpoint, I would make sure we're thinking outside the box, but you have a great palette there to start with. Tee expansion. And it's not only expansion, it's more importantly, it's looking at the strategy of the golf course. The length of the golf course is kind of short, but you have a lot of things happening on each hole. So the length I'm not so concerned with, in that we have the flexibility to set up this golf course in a variety of different ways, angles, short to long. So our tee program not only looked at the size of the tees and how much play happens out here, but really the flexibility of each hole. There's not a ton of flexibility on a lot of these golf holes. That's where and you can look at the master plan, each hole individually. We have different tees being positioned. This is the 3rd hole here, which we're adding length to the back tee, adding a new, we'll call it middle tee, and adding a new forward tee. So all of a sudden now you have 5 different yardages you can play from in that hole, and gives it some flexibility, allows you to, maintain those tees in a better way with the wear patterns and so forth that are happening. And gives some playability to the up tee player as well. Some of these par 3s or par 4s are kind of long for the forward tee player. So we looked at all of those things, including angles and alignment and lines of play. What are we carrying? What's the strategy from the tee? So these tee locations are all a result of that study. Options around the greens and greens themselves. There's a few greens out here, number 10 and number 12, that are agronomically challenging just because of their location on the property. They receive a lot of water from outside the property in upper locations. Obviously, Chris does an unbelievable job in maintaining them for what he has, but there's solutions. And these are greens that we could get into and really create some new surfaces here and much more functional surfaces on the property. 10 and 12 are certainly 2 of those, and it doesn't take a lot to improve these greens. I'm not talking about rebuilding greens at a USGA form type of green. We're talking about matching what you have out here, like we did on number 2. 2's been a good template, I think, for what could happen out here in a very efficient and creative way. And you have the same opportunities here on number 10 and number 12. Number 7, we can have a long conversation about number 7, but number 7, I think we have the biggest ideas about. And it's the biggest topic of conversation here at the club. So number 7, there's a lot of room around this green to do something unbelievably creative and exciting, adding some length to the golf hole, certainly giving yourself a more amenable and playable surface, a more receptive surface, a more creative surface. But again, embracing everything that's already here, all the rock walls, the movement of the ground, all of it can be built into a new green complex that sits just beyond what you have right now. So it'll add about 30 yards of length to this golf hole, along with a variety of different approach shots to the golf hole. So number 7 is high on the list of priority projects. And we've come up with a few solutions to what we can do on number 7. Right now, you'll see this plan. I'm going to blow it up a little bit. Right now, the green is in the middle of that letter C, essentially where the existing green is. So there's an opportunity beyond that green. If you're standing in the middle of the green, just look towards number 11. And there's a large space right there where that green could be expanded. The fairway can be swept around from the right to create a whole nother landing area and approach area. And again, we'll pick up about 30 yards on that golf hole. And it's built into the rock wall on the left-hand side that's there. It would fit very well into the character of Bass Rocks. Pretty exciting. The details of the golf course are very important. I think there's a multitude of opportunities around these greens to create some very exciting features, both pitch areas, mounds, access areas, run-on areas, chase-on areas like you have on 17. There's a variety of those spaces on this golf course that easily can be put together in the field, whether in-house or through contracting, to create some more variety to the golf course. These are not huge projects. These are very simple, detail-driven projects that change the playability and strategy of some of these golf holes. Number 8's a good example. Number 8, we can work all around that green to create some very interesting strategy, especially on the right-hand side of that green and long. And number 13 as well. So number 8, clearing the right side, creating a pitch area over there, will create a very different golf hole. A lot of balls go over there and you lose them, or you're in a hazard on that right-hand side. So let's create some playability and some usefulness to that right-hand side as well as long. The bunkering is good on that hole. We'll just rebuild it in the style and character that we choose. Number 13 is another good example of areas that are challenging to maintain. We can certainly work that left-hand side in a much more dramatic way and get some playability to the left of that green, where now you kind of struggle a little bit with the quality of the agronomy over there because of the peat and so forth. But we can create something, if you, again, think about what we did on number 2, to a very challenging approach area. Number 2, now it's very playable. It's very exciting. There's so many different things happening down there. It was a similar situation down there. So we can do that here on 13 as well. So expanding the area, pitch area behind the green and around the green, expanding the approach. Both of those would add a lot of value to that golf hole. Prioritization of safety is important. I think that's been a big issue at the club for a little bit now, and most recently kind of got jacked up around the 4th hole, the 14th hole, things that have been happening with neighboring properties. Unfortunately or fortunately, you're surrounded by neighbors. And in many ways, we were here first, but it doesn't matter these days. You have to respond, and we like to try to respond in a very creative and golf-centric way, and not have to throw up nets. But we had to do that on number 4. But I don't like that approach if we don't have to. So there's different ways, especially number 4. We kind of went down a little bit of a road designing an improvement plan for number 4 that we can look at a little more closely to solve the balls going off to the left-hand side. A lot of it was based on the angle of play and the just golf balls going to the left. So if we align the hole a little bit more to the right and start to begin to strategize that left-hand side in a stronger way, I think we can solve a majority of those balls going off to the left. What's happening now, balls going over the fence, a little bit of lack of interest in the landing area, so we can expand that landing area, create some strategy on the left-hand side. This shifts the cart path over a bit and expands the width of the fairway as you approach, which you really want to approach this hole from the center right side of that fairway. Create some really exciting bunker complex on the left-hand side as well, and give some real visual context to the golf hole. So we've gone as far as creating a schematic plan for this hole. We have a construction plan in place to go out there and do just what you just saw, to create that realignment, if you will. It also includes additional tees, to create some variety in the length of the golf hole, to provide better playability. The meadows, I look at in a lot of different ways. I've been looking at the meadows for over 20 years, with wide eyes. I really want to do something down there, because it's such a picture right outside of this window. It's the original golf course. It would be such a great opportunity to go in there. It would be an honor for me, but a great opportunity to go into these golf holes and create a tremendous palette of character and design style down there, to open up some of the strategy in between these golf holes and give them their own definition, but as a whole, a singular picture of what you're looking out over these windows, as well as solving some big problems, drainage, irrigation. We need more water on this golf course. There's not enough capacity for water on this golf course. So part of the solution down in the meadows is enlarging the pond down at the tees on 16 and 18. With that, and expanding the channel and capacity running through the golf holes on 16 and 18. And that's going to allow us to control the water in a much better way and have more storage, if you will, down at the pump house, which is very important. A little rendering of what we're looking at down there. So here's how it exists right now. So the creek running through the property, we believe can be extensively enhanced to become very strategic at strategic points on each of the golf holes. So it expands and contracts and moves in a very natural way, moving through the property. Expansion of the pond. So now you can see how holes 16 and 18 are very different. You're going to play very differently. You're going to be challenged by the water on both of those holes, but visually outside of this window is going to be spectacular. And we'll create and generate material for uses on the golf course for other projects, which is important as well. There's no material out here to really draw from. So this is a big project. It's a big project. It's always been a big project. It's always been a big vision, but it sits there as an opportunity to solve some major issues that the club is going to be facing for years to come relative to water. So if we're going to solve those problems, let's strategically and visually create something very special in the meadows. I get jacked up about the meadows. I really do. I really do. I've got a drawing that's been on my drafting board for 20 years. And I have not moved it. It's sitting there, and it's going to stay there until it's built. With your help. I'm not. Chris has been doing a great job with tree management on the golf course, and it just needs to continue. I think tree management on every golf course these days is a high topic, and sometimes a controversial topic, but here I think tree management from a agronomic standpoint is priority one, visual standpoint as well. He's opened up some tremendous vistas across this golf course where you can stand on tees and greens and see through corridors of golf holes that were never seen before. And that gives you some air circulation, it gives you solar exposure, all the things agronomically that we need on this golf course, but that should just continue as it has. And Chris and we just did it before we came here tonight. Again, looked at more potential tree management projects on the golf course that would make some sense to continue on. So those are the main categories of improvement. I think everything, the last piece is a real topographical boundary survey of the property. I don't know that it exists right now. It's because we've been working off a variety of different things. So with all the issues that are existing around this property, a property survey is gonna go a long way to legally, design-wise, all different ways to help the club, position themselves for future projects and future issues if they come up. And we can help with that. Right now, we're working off a LiDAR map that we've created, that works very well for our purposes, but the property lines need to be surveyed. So that's more of an engineering functional thing, as we move forward. So those are 10 categories of improvement. I think the individual holes, I'm not gonna go through every hole because we'll be here all night. I don't want to do that. There's booklets on some of the tables out here for each of you to kind of peruse through. There's the master plan here. We have a couple of individual holes that are illustrated in the back of the room as well, for you to look at and talk about. I really want to, at this point now, probably open up to some questions or just have a discussion about your thoughts on Bass Rocks, your thoughts on about how we proceed with what we're doing right now, and some of the ideas that we produced and presented here tonight, and how we can fit them into what's coming down the road here at Bass Rocks. Before I answer your question, is this all right to answer the questions? Okay.
Just repeat the question.
Okay, got it. Yep.
Okay. Very impressive body of work. You have to be here for 25 years.
I know.
One just kind of a personal observation. Earlier you mentioned Finley and HC leagues. Of course, all of us on the North Shore. The other high-profile clubs have been going through extensive renovations for the last 10 years, particularly the last person, to restore them back to the original conditions or original playability style, whatever. Notably, HC leads with Wyoming. Did he have a particular style or signature? And if he did, is any of it incorporated in this?
Right.
And then my second question is, we just completed a large irrigation project, and quite possibly state of the art, best in class. To what extent will that system support these types of improvements, or do we have to also look at expansion of that system?
Right. Two great questions. First, what's the lead style? I would say that the answer is no. I mean, he only had a couple of golf courses that he constructed, this one and that one, in his time here. He was more of a businessman and he was working in the area. But at the time, we're talking about the late 1800s. There wasn't a lot of dirt moved. There wasn't a lot of crazy things happening. So a style to be developed in that short period of time, at that time in golf course architecture, probably not. So the beauty here is that it was his routing of this golf course. That's the beauty here. The utilization of the existing crazy rock and outcroppings and elevations and topography, that was his strength. He did it at Myopia too. So the golf holes are well positioned and creatively positioned on a pretty compact piece of property. You know, with double, triple, quadruple fairways right here and doubles on 5 and 6 to create golf holes that were playable and unique on a very difficult piece of property. I would say that was his claim to fame on those two golf courses. So to come up with a style that matches his, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about a style that is fitting to Bass Rocks, and fits the character and style of the property as a whole. As far as irrigation goes, that's a great question. You know, we've been involved in numerous golf courses that have put in their irrigation system before they did a master plan, or put in the irrigation system before they did construction. It should be the other way around, but it almost never is, because you need irrigation is a priority for, you know, it's a #1 priority. So the system that's here now is exceptional, and I don't think we had any issues on #2. Maybe a few pieces that we had to move around to create, go through the construction process, but I don't think anything that we're talking about here, short of, you know, you build a new 7th green, yes, you have to cut off your irrigation system, re-loop the new green and put it back together. That's the extent of what we're talking about. We are very diligent, and I can tell you this 1,000 times, to mark heads before we even design anything. you know, and Chris can attest to this. The work I did on number 4, I laid it out to try to save the irrigation system as best I can, and at the same time create a very unique strategic experience there on the left side of number 4, because there's all kinds of irrigation over there. So sometimes you can afford it, sometimes you can't, but we do our best to try to avoid it and utilize what's here. But you have a great system.
And let me just add to that, Norma. The system that we have is very, very easy to add on to. It's actually one of the reasons why we chose, the decoder style system. And I will attest to what when Rob did his drawing, I couldn't believe how well he positioned all the bunkers to minimize any impact or have to replace or modify any of the irrigation.
Yeah, as you know, irrigation is very expensive. It's just, and it's not going down. Okay. Can't be one question.
Will the new 7th green be the same or about the same as the elevation of the existing green?
Probably not. The elevation, the question is, will the new 7th green be about the same elevation as the existing 7th green? The construction process over there would require the utilization of that material that's on the existing 7th green now. And to create a new green would probably lower it by about 3 feet. We were out there looking at it this afternoon, and it's about 3 feet lower than it is right now. To make that all work and push the material out. That's a project that's going to require some dirt. So there's some dirt there in the existing. There's a lot of unknowns. That's the thing about Bass Rocks. What's under the ground? Rocks. So there's a lot of unknowns, especially if anybody was around when that green was built. Please come up here right now and let's talk about what was under that green when they built it, so I can understand where to begin. I think I know, but I don't. I don't know exactly what's under that green. So it's going to require some dirt. It's going to end up about 3 feet lower than it is right now. Yep.
Looking at the thing that was sent emailed around, at the plan, it referred to 18 as a par 5.
It's a par 4. That was a mistake. Okay. I think that was changed. It was changed after that was sent. It is for the women. Yes, it is for the women or the forward tee players. Yes.
So obviously, it might know on it, right? Get our little bang for the buck.
Let me name 3 things. I'm going to name, so the question is, what's the biggest bang for the dollar within the improvements that are recommended? Some of these are long-term improvements, some of these are functional improvements, some of these are needed improvements. I think I'll call it 1A, 1B, 1C. Water is critical. You need water. Water is always going to be a challenge. So I think you need to look really closely at the expansion of the pond here down at the meadows and gaining as much capacity as you can. That's one. The issue of number 7 green has been existing here for so long that you should solve it. It can be solved in a good way, in an exciting, very creative way. I think that should be on the list, and any other green work as well. One of the things that we like to think about and talk about a lot as we move through a process is logistical sensibility. So when you're building a green, for example, on number 7, or we did it on number 2, but if you're building a green on numbers, we have issues on number 10, we have issues on number 12, we have issues on number 7. Those are the 3 greens we'd like to address. Can we build them in a way where we're getting a 2-for-1 situation, where we're taking the sod from number 7, putting it on number 10 as we rebuild that green? That's done, and we're just building 1 green. Logistical sensibility and cost sensibility, you're going to get some cost savings in that way. So I think that project is something we want to think about long and hard from a cost standpoint and a logistical construction standpoint. And finally, the bunker project. And the bunker project, I think, is going to just continue to happen. I don't think it's today, let's rebuild all the bunkers, although that'd be great. I think it's as we move through the golf course, and again, it's logistical. So let's say we want to build the bunkers, on a part of the golf course. So you got bunkers on 5, 6, 9, 7. You're in one area of the golf course. That might be a logistical sensibility. And finally, maybe this is a D, is the practice range. The practice range is a blank palette. that could bring a whole nother level of quality and visibility to this golf course that doesn't exist today. Yeah.
I'd just like to add to that, you know, with number one being the pond, you're gonna remove a lot of material to create that pond. And in order, you gotta put it somewhere. You don't wanna pay to haul it out of here. So one of the things you might wanna look at would be, what are we doing around that pond? Maybe the meadows should get done with the pond. You know, and logistically, everything is here. You're messing up a big area. You go play 14 holes for however long. And you can still play the golf course and we make a mess out there and we don't have to make a mess here ever again. And you guys take a look at it. For the turkey shoot. We know that next week.
We're almost there.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Chris. I think, again, it's logistical stuff, so if you're gonna do that, let's do the work that's in the logistical area of the construction.
How much of the proposed or the possible changes require third party approval? So forth. I know, for example, the water, or 18 was, are there other areas that we have to be concerned about conservation? Local-
Right. Right, so the question is which projects or how many of these projects require jurisdictional approval, Concom, et cetera. Anything to do with water, anything to do with dredging of ponds, yes, absolutely. Anything that encroaches or is within a buffer area of an existing wetland. You know, Chris has done an unbelievable job in creating a relationship with the local Concom and has kind of guided the club through some very challenging situations in a brilliant way. So that's something we look at with each project. We're gonna rebuild a bunker? No. Rebuilding the 7th green? I don't think so, but we're not exactly sure, but I don't think so. But anything to do with water and proximate to a jurisdictional body of water or wetland would require Concom approval. Everything we did on number 5, that went through the Concom because we're raising grade and so forth, but, well,
For example.
Yes.
yes,
Quite a bit does.
yeah, yeah, the Meadows work would certainly require Concom. Yeah, Peter?
Someone online, wanted to know, maybe it's a direction to Chris Long. If we decide to advance the 7th green, what's the timeline like, something like that?
Right, so,
Months wise.
yeah, so, you know, I think you just saw what we did. We did it on number 2. So the question was, what's the timeline on number 7 to rebuild it? I mean, that hole can be rebuilt in a month. So pick the month, first of all, pick the month that's most amenable to the club and build it. So that's a situation where, and again, you witnessed the process on number 2. It took, you know, we started and finished and then reopened the golf hole. But if you sod versus seed, it's a whole nother, whole nother timeline as well. Sodding is going to open the golf hole quicker than seeding, which would make a difference. And again, you know, flipping sod around and doing some different things together might make some sense, and we can talk about that. But you know, the project would take about a month, and then from that point on, growing it into playability. So it depends on when you do it. If you did it in the month of August, late August, perfect timing, best time, probably be ready for the following season. If you did it in now, no, probably not ready for the next season. If you did it in the spring, no, won't be ready for the season, won't be ready till the end of the season. So the best time to do work, I know it's uncomfortable a little bit, but it's August, the month of August. Green work. Yes.
Rob, more on water, in the plan, map. The water on 18, 11, 12, 13, is that as simple as you dig it out and the water's there? Do we know the water's there?
On 18, it's there. We know it's there. We're going to dredge and gain as much capacity in that existing body and additional capacity from an expansion as possible. We know that's there. 11 and 12, the water table is pretty darn high, so it's probably there. We don't have, there's no water there now, but we know that it's a saturated condition up there. The water's, and a lot of water comes to those areas. So, yeah, there's a good possibility there's water. And there's other ways. I mean, I'm not an engineer. There's wells, there's different ways to approach water resource management, and that's, but this is using what you have here right now.
You thought of developing more ponds? You know, waters, for example, 13. Part three, shape
Right.
of 16 hole of Augusta National.
Yeah.
All the way up.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So the question is there an opportunity anywhere else to develop ponds on the golf course? And 13 is brought up. So 13, it's an engineering question really, because it's a peat bog over there. And I don't know how much peat you'd have to pull out of that thing to get to a point where you've got ground that can be a pond. That's the question over there. The answer is, that'd be great. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful spot, but it's a peat bog.
It's also, you have to look at how it is regarding resource areas. And it is part of a resource area, it's a floodplain, so you can't really, it's like, you can't go dig up a floodplain and make a pond. And the answer also is, you need to remove all the peat, not just on the 13th hole, all the peat all the way out till it's all gone, and unfortunately, that's all the way to the street. And all like in front of the 12th green, because it needs to be stable. So I know that the club has looked at that in the past. I think that's more of a drainage type situation than a pond type situation in the front. It's all about engineering.
It is.
What about the potential of the pond up, the upper pond over by 8?
Yeah, so the question is the upper pond on 8, does that have some, I don't know if that has flexibility for depth. I know that was built when the holes 6, 7, 8 were built. It is utilized for some water. I don't, and Chris is saying no, there's not much viability in gaining more capacity in that pond. We looked at it a little bit, yeah. Yes, sir.
Quick question, you talk about safety and playability and 14-year challenges with our neighbors. Was there any consideration to think about extending that to make it a par 5? It allow for less fitting into the neighbors, but still gaining ground and making a playability hole, because there's plenty of room back here to height is more than anything else.
Yeah, so the question is 14, can you extend 14 to become a par 5 to alleviate some of the safety issues there? I mean, the ground behind that tee is quite challenging. It's rock, it's all over the place, down, up, I'm not sure we wouldn't be moving the problem. That would be my concern.
Yeah, the question is, you have all these rocks around here that you're gonna be moving around.
Right,
Does that allow us to build out a plateau, and when we drain the pond and use that fill to make it actually a decent key area back there, because there's a lot of material that's gonna come out.
I think that is an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity. I really have to look at the elevations back there to make sure how much you would need to do that. And again, I don't want to move the problem. It just kind of, yeah.
I've talked with Bob about that issue. I didn't look at part 5, and the problem is, anybody who move the tee back 3, or anybody who will fade is gonna hit the maintenance.
Right.
I don't check.
That's all right. Chris said that's okay.
I was gonna say, that'd be the most expensive tee you ever heard. $250,000 tee for 25 yards, that'd be a lot.
Yes, sir.
Question, over the years, we've added a lot of bunkers. I've heard the word bunker a lot. Personally, I'm a fan of grass traps. I believe old Bass Rocks was kind of a grass trap on the course.
Yeah.
There's no better trap on the course than behind 11, that grass trap
Hmm.
to the right. Do these plans have any new grass traps in the design?
There's a lot, so the question is there room in the design for non-bunkers or grass features, pockets, mitts? Yes, the answer to your question is yes. Most of the bunker work in the plan enhances what's here now. And or removes some bunkers that are here now, and add some mounding and add some pockets of grass. All of the above are part of this plan, but I agree behind 11 is pretty cool. But 11 is it's kind of an historic looking green right there. I mean, it's squared up back. There were bunkers around that green at one point. So I'd bring back a couple of them, but not all of them, and leave some grass around it as well to give some variety of shots around that green. Yes.
You talked about gaining 30 extra yards on number 7. Other tees or greens where you think you could lengthen the course a bit?
Yeah, so the question is about lengthening the course in other places by the, the better player asking the question. The answer is wherever we can. So the answer is on number 1. So we have a back tee on number 1 that's further back by the putting green on the practice green on number 1. Let me just walk through in my head here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold on. 6, 10. 10 has a quite interesting tee, bottom left of the existing tee, down in the valley to the left. That's way back. It's about 30, 40 yards back right there. 16 would be on the other side of the pond. That adds about 25, 30 yards back there, and completely different strategy from there. Those are the bigger ones. And at the same time, we've got forward tees and mid tees all over the golf course to create that variety of strategy. Yeah.
We threw in the presentation, notion of making the course more playable for, particularly in the par threes, the new tee placements or enhancements. Did you expand on that?
Sure.
How it's gonna be more playable, the average guy?
Yeah, so I think,
Yeah.
yeah, the tees are, and so the question is the playability, more playability for the higher handicapper or mid handicapper over the golf course. That solution comes in the way of tees, tee locations, up tees, mid tees, different angles of play. It also comes in the way of opening up run-ons to the greens. In some of these cases, number 9 is a good example of that. To create an open run-on and fairway going onto that green from either side, left and right. And there's, moving bunkers away from the center line of the approach to the greens in some cases as well. So there's different ways to non-bunkering and non-tee wise to create some open lines of play to these greens. And that would be the solution out here. The course is reasonably short, but I don't think length is it doesn't matter out here because it's so up and down. The elevation changes throw the yardage out the book. And the wind, constantly. I was just out there. It was just super windy. Yeah, that changes everything. Yep.
With all of the special comments, and your wonderful dream about the meadow, as the architect, have you ever considered making 15 the first hole of the golf course, and 14 the finishing hole after your vision of reorganizing the meadow?
So the question is rerouting and making 15 number 1. I think I thought about that a long time ago, but I haven't thought about it in a long time. And I don't know that it's a terrible idea. What I do like about number 1 is it gets you off. It gets you off and through the golf course and out onto the golf course. Here you're instantly in a 4-hole stretch that there's players all around you. And there's not a whole ton of room to move the ball left to right, right to left in some of these holes without being in other holes. And I love the finish. I mean, I love the finish of these 4 holes. Or right, you could stand here and watch the players play the last 4 holes of the golf course right from this window, which is kind of cool. Which is you don't find that hardly anywhere. So, but it could work. Could it functionally work that way? Yes, it could. But there's other factors. Yeah.
You know of any other golf course where you can see the last one?
Maybe a little par 3 course or no, not like this. No, I don't. So it's a unique amenity to Bass Rocks. And I'd love to make it even better. Yeah.
I came in a little late when we started. I was surprised to see 17 wasn't adjusted at all. We had a problem with a neighbor on the right. I hate that tee box in the back.
Yeah.
Probably the reason why you can't put a tee box, you extend the existing tee box back a little bit and you're up on that rock. You're looking down on.
Right. So the question is, what do we do on number 17? Well, we've done number 17. We've changed the tees on number 17 dramatically already, added up tees. We moved everything to the right, moved the cart path to the right, moved the tees to the right. We've done a lot of things on 17. It's just, that property is in a bad location. The back tee is, and again, I don't put my stamp on it. The back tee is probably the major problem is the back tee for that property over there. And I know it's not utilized as much as it wants to be by the membership, but we're also doing things around the green within our plan to kind of help move players, away from the right as well. But that play that. Yeah, I think we're just creating another length that's gonna cause problems with the neighbor. That's the problem. Right now, we studied this. We spent some time, getting those tees to a point where they're gonna be the least impacting on that neighbor. So as we move further back, we're kind of going back on what we kind of did there. I agree that if there's nothing else there, there's tons of flexibility in that golf hole to create some unique interest. But it's a tough hole. It's tough to hit that green. It's tough to play that hole properly. You really got to land it in the right place. And the further you go back, the tougher it is. But yeah, the answer to your question, I think I don't know what the situation has been with the neighbors lately, but hopefully we've quieted the situation down.
Yeah, sometime like the back tees, just as trees grow in, it's gonna be obsolete, so is there something we can reuse that piece going up to 18th or something like that, you know what I mean? Because I don't see the back tee being a long-term part of this golf. It's going away. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm all for giving that hole as much flexibility as possible without compromising the safety we've solved to this point. It's a challenging situation.
Came in late, but you addressed it. Question on 10 tee box. It's always perplexed me looking back. It's a pretty extensive piece of unused land, and I've always wondered, historically, but like if you had to map it out, I'd just be curious to what would that look like in your eyes if you're standing on the tee box looking at the green behind you? Would there be an ability to have something back there?
Right, so the question is about 10T, which we talked about briefly before. We have a tee on the plan that's not straight back, but back left. So that tee box is not sitting in front of you. It plays from the left. It adds about 25 yards to the golf hole. It's kind of a chute coming up from that left-hand side, sitting on the right, fits in really nice. That whole area that's abandoned there to the right, or as you're standing on to the left of the tee. I know, I looked at it for a lot of different uses and short game practice area, a little par 3 course. I mean, there's a lot you can do over there, but I know there's neighbor issues there too. So that's kind of an unutilized space on the property that could be, and there may be some jurisdictional issues there too, I'm not sure, but that's a space over there that's available for something. Yeah.
Design those nasty mountains on 17.
No, that was Chris. That was Chris.
You think someday we can have it shaved down like 5 and 6? So we can find our ball from the back tee.
Is it the grass or is it the mount? What is it? Chris, can you help me here?
Hit it straight.
Anyone else have a question?
Yes.
I was surprised that the plan didn't mention the tees much. The tees here are not really level. And I assume first thing you want to do is level some tees.
Yeah, I think that's just an overriding, for our T program, that's an overriding element. So, if we're rebuilding tees or not rebuilding tees, a leveling program is something we probably drop into Chris's long range plan. You pick off a couple of tees a year, something like that, and level them out that we're not going to rebuild or expand upon. Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. Yes.
All of this happens, can you anticipate how it would affect the slope of this course?
I can't. I can't. We'll have to bring in the USGA to answer that question, but I don't, Here's what I will say. I don't think any of the improvements that we're talking about is gonna make the golf course any harder or easier. I think it's gonna make it better. There's, you'll have back tees that make a few holes more challenging. But overall, we're not changing a lot of the green complexes and the approach shots to the golf course. We're improving and enhancing the functionality of the golf course and the strategy. So I think it may change a bit, but not dramatically.
I got one question.
Yes.
I was at Brayburn last fall, and they redid some of their greens, the 18th green.
Okay.
What they did is they cut the green in squares, and they numbered them.
Yep.
And they redid the whole green, and then they just put them each square back.
Yep.
When we did 2, we did plugs.
Right.
Now, if we redid 7, we would have to do plugs again, or do we just cut that green up and use the same green, or does that save time?
There's, you could use that approach. You're gonna have some loss when you do it that way. You're gonna have some loss when you cut it up like that. And you can always replenish with a nursery if you have a nursery, but yeah, to rebuild. So the question is, can you rebuild the 7th green with the 7th green sod? Yeah, the answer to the question is yes. I've done it that way. It's been done that way. Just the timing is of the essence. So you gotta, cut it up, put it aside, build it, get it back on there reasonably quickly. I don't know what they did for the profile of the green itself. They kind of really rebuilt the green, or just redid the mix and put it back quickly back together. Okay, they built it up.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's the same footprint.
but higher.
Yeah, so typically when they do something like that, it fits exactly.
Right.
This is not the same shape, it's not the same.
Right.
It's bigger.
Right.
So that was a restoration of the green. Yeah, this is different.
And I think that's what when Rob talks about, well, you could use that sod. So maybe it would be good to do the 10th green at the same time. The 10th green is smaller than the 7th green, so you could do the 10th green, build the 10th green, take the sod from 7, put it on 10.
Right.
And then go rebuild 7 like we did number 2.
Right, but the biggest problem on 2, well, not a big problem, was that it took so long for that green to mature, because it was so tender.
Yeah,
And how do we know we're not gonna run into the same problem on 7?
Yeah.
So the issue with number 2 isn't that it took so long, it's when you have, it's gonna take the same amount of time, you have to think about growing time. So when you start building a green in March, you're not really growing any grass in March, you're not really growing any grass in April, and you're not really barely starting to grow grass in May. So you have May, June, and then July is when we open, right? If you build it in August, you're growing grass in September and October. So you got your 2 months right there. Then when you go back to the next year, you're not doing anything in October, November, December, or November, December, and then here. May you might get some grass growing. I mean, grass is still brown here sometimes
Yeah.
in the beginning of May, so you're looking at really like Memorial Day. It really has to do with the cumulative amount of growing time, not the year. Which is why I think, August is the best,
correct.
July would probably be just as good, it's just a little more stressful, it's almost too hot.
Yeah.
August is perfect. And that minimizes your least amount of time for the year, but it's the same amount of golfing time, real golfing time.
Right. Yes.
My guest canceled this afternoon, otherwise I couldn't make this. I'm not sure, Bob, if you can answer this, or maybe, where does this go from here? We have a presentation, this concept, what's the next step?
Yeah, I'll answer a part of it, and then Peter and Tony or anybody else can pitch in here. So now we've come up with all of these improvement recommendations. The next step is really to prioritize the items, put some preliminary cost estimates to all the work, which we've begun to do, and have that as your guiding principle or guiding document to decision making, as far as what wants to be done first and when and how within the structure of the club. That's the process. And again, as Peter said at the beginning, we just finished our master plan from 2001 recently. So it's the timing of it and the phasing of it is based on the club's directive. Yes,
So if I understand what you just previously said, a start date of August 2025 would be the ideal time to start implementing whatever changes side you want to do next. Is that right, Chris?
what I would, so the question is, in August, the best time to start to build a green? If you're building a green, August is the best time. Right, you could be building bunkers today, right now. You can push that stuff off beyond the season, but a green, August,
Green's August, but everything else could be done.
any other time of the year.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes,
I'm just more curious on the process that you go through working with Chris and the golf community things. How much approval do they give in steps wise, or you go off and come up with this and come back and say, here it is? I mean, I'm sure you don't, but I'm curious about the give and take and, the things that they rejected, said, no, that'll never fly here, that's not a good idea.
right, right. So the uniqueness here is I've been here a long time with these guys, certainly with Peter and with Chris. So we're not gonna go on this golf course and blow it up because it's just not what it wants to happen out here. I'm very meticulous about what should or could happen out here and what I'm gonna recommend. But I do go out by myself. I don't want to hear anything from anybody. Just let me go out there and make a laundry list of everything I see. And then we'll come back and say, okay, you see what I see? That's gonna stay on the list. Or this is never gonna, we're not gonna do, I mean, there's a lot of give and take. We whittled this thing down to the simplicity that it's at right now. So yeah, I do spend a lot of time by myself, we took some broad ranging 30,000 square foot recommendations from the club. Here's what the issue that, we started with was number 4. We have an issue on number 4, we gotta solve it. Okay, and then we start to develop our programming from there. And to categorize things, and then we just developed each recommendation, but it's a collaboration. In the end, it's a collaboration with not only these guys, but the membership as we're sitting here right now at large. Yeah.
Anything else? Let's give Rob a hand.
Thank you, everybody on the evening. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming and, just keep an eye on your bills the next month. No, we'll be putting some plans together and they'll be getting some communication on what we're doing going forward. So no worries. Have a great night.
That's great.
Somewhere.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.